Hey guys, so welcome back. Now we're in part two here. Hopefully you found some good information when you did your Google search of one of the different bulleted points on slide number 10. And hopefully you're refreshed now, ready for this second part of introducing you to interprofessional education and interprofessional practice. The second part is going to be a shorter video, but focusing more on interprofessional education and then also a case study. So let's get to it. I'm going to share my screen here. If you're following along with the PowerPoint, this is slide number 11. So we're picking back up with that same PowerPoint, slide 11 here. It's titled Graduate Accreditation Standards. So first question that I would ask if I were watching this, this video here is, what does accreditation mean? If you've not heard of it, many of you are interested in different graduate healthcare programs. Well, they need to be an accredited program. Accreditation means that an outside agency, an accrediting body, an outside agency that represents whatever profession that program is. So example, the occupational therapy program here at North Central College, there is an accrediting body for occupational therapy programs. This is not a North Central College group. This is a national group that is made up of occupational therapy program educators, and they set different standards for the actual graduate programs. They say when a school like North Central College has an OT program, they need to teach X, Y, and Z. So it outlines different things that need to be taught at that program in order to have the program. Then what accrediting bodies do is they actually come to the different campuses around the United States that have those programs and check to make sure, do they actually teach what they're supposed to teach? Do they have enough faculty? What kind of labs do they have? What kind of classrooms do they have? Are they doing everything to put them at a certain standard of teaching students occupational therapy? So if a school gets accredited, it means that this outside agency has come in, checked over all the details about their actual program and said, yes, they meet the minimum standards in order to have that program. If they don't meet the minimum standards, they're not allowed to have the program at that school. So example, if the occupational therapy, OT, accrediting body came in and said, no, you don't meet the standards, we couldn't have the OT program here. So most graduate programs have accrediting bodies. So that's what that means. It's a really important thing because it makes sure that wherever you decide to go to school for nursing, occupational therapy, pharmacy, social work, whatever you decide that you want to go into, it ensures that you, at its core, you will get a certain level of knowledge and skill and support from that school. Now, they may have different twists on them. They may focus on, I'll use OT example, they may focus a little bit more on pediatrics than geriatrics. Okay, that's fine. So you might get a little more developed in pediatrics at that school. But at its core, you will understand anatomy and different aspects of OT. I won't go and get into all the accreditation standards. Usually there's hundreds of accreditation standards that need to be met in order to have programs. So it's a good safeguard for you. So it should be a really positive thing for a student. It's a stressful thing for the schools because they have to make sure that they keep up with it or else they can't have that program. But ultimately really good things. So again, graduate accreditation standards. One of those standards, and again, like I said, there's hundreds of standards. One of them now is they have to have interprofessional education embedded into their program. So remember on part one video when I said that up until the early 1990s, schools didn't address IPE. They literally just said, we're going to talk only about public health because you're in a public health program. So we're going to stay in this silo. We're not going to acknowledge that there are other healthcare professionals out there. Well, no more for the last 30 years. And one of the major things that has prompted this is accrediting bodies are requiring it. And they're saying, hey, if you want to have that athletic training program at North Central College, somewhere within that athletic training program, you have to introduce students to interprofessional education, and you have to show them what interprofessional practice is. So it has to be at least appearing once in the program. And sometimes it's embedded throughout, so there's different levels of it. But as a result of accreditation standards, all these programs that are listed on this slide have requirements to have interprofessional education within their program. So major change over the last 30 years from not addressing it whatsoever. So why does interprofessional education matter when we're talking about health science? All right, we're not in a graduate program right now. We're in an undergraduate program. Some of us are preparing for clinical graduate programs, but we're not specifically learning about those things now. However, you are all future healthcare professionals, whether you're clinical or non-clinical. So within the health science program, specifically within an intro program, so you're early on in your health science program, we're going to introduce this concept to you because I want you to move forward both here at North Central College in your undergraduate degree, and then when you go on to graduate school, I want you to hear about interprofessional education and say, oh, I've known about that for years and I totally understand it. So the graduate professions are already going to have it. The health professions, when you actually get out in the real world, are going to have it. And the reason I want you to know about it now is I want you to get used to the concept. I want you to embrace it. It certainly is something that you will you'll have ingrained in you and have it will be encircling your future healthcare profession, whether it be clinical or non-clinical. It's something that you will be practicing for the rest of your career. So I want you to be really, really familiar and comfortable with it and actually come to enjoy working as a collaborative team. Within the health sciences, we tend to be used to sharing information. Okay, you guys will start getting really good at working within teams and collaborating with others. So I think we become really good at it here. Then when we get to our different graduate programs, it becomes second nature, which is wonderful. This shows some different strategies that you might see within the health science program here, or you could see when you go on to graduate education of different things that could be ingrained within the curriculum that all equate to introducing yourself to interprofessional education. So I focus this, two of the columns, one says intracurricular and extracurricular. So this second column here talks about things that actually could be done within your classes, and then extracurricular are things outside of just a regular class. So, and then it goes from low time and resource demand to high. So example for a medium here, maybe within the curriculum, you might take a single interprofessional prefix introductory course. So an actual course that is focused on interprofessional education. And that's all that the course is focused on. So that's a medium resource for time and demand. It's an actual course, but let's go up to maybe you've got an entire major that is focused on interprofessional education. Well, that's an extremely high demand on you. So you can see the difference there. Extracurricular, outside of different courses you might take, there could be some interprofessional workshops or orientations that a graduate program might do. Moving up into the resource demand, you might have a simulation activity or a capstone project, a portfolio, something like that as a requirement. So these are all different types of things that all lead to an understanding of interprofessional education, but you can see how they vary as far as intercurricular, extracurricular, and then the different time demands that you'd have. So I've really promoted this idea of interprofessional education, interprofessional practice, and oh my gosh, it's so great, right? So if it really is so great, why is it not easily adopted and widespread? Why do we continue to have challenges where we see either the multidisciplinary, remember that's that parfait approach, or no collaboration? Within interprofessional education, so not talking about practice once we get into the hospital, it's not easily adopted and widespread because we have a lot of different academic units. A lot of times they're in different buildings. So here at North Central College, think about your major and how often do you interact with those outside of your major. If you're taking general education courses or courses outside the major, maybe pretty frequently. But within the health science program, how often do you interact with somebody that is a dance major or an accounting major? Not terribly often, like I said, unless it's general education. So because we have such a focus on, well, you have a lot to do within your respective majors, we don't have a lot of time to go and interact with people outside of it. That can be a reason why it's not easily adopted. Many engage in interprofessional education, but they don't realize or appreciate it. There's a lack of understanding of what exactly this means. And when there's lack of understanding, there's lack of, that goes on to say, we're not sure how to actually maximize that communication. So how do we actually get people together, and why do we get people together in a room talking about a shared common goal? Traditionally, like I said, even 30 years ago, which is not that long ago when we think of the history of medicine and health programs, traditionally there was a lack of understanding of a need for interprofessional education. So before 1990, there was no talk of interprofessional education in graduate healthcare programs. So it's still a relatively new concept. And because of that, it's not as widespread, not as easily adopted. We still see some hurdles. Moving forward, though, there are a lot of organizations that are trying to help with those hurdles and really promote interprofessional education and interprofessional practice, make it more understandable, make it more widespread, promote different concepts and ideas to help integrate it into education programs and into hospital and clinical programs. So I've put together some links. Again, you have access to this PowerPoint. You're welcome to click on these links if you'd like to check out some of these organizations. The next slide also has some, but these are both one in Canada and America. There you can see. And then we've got these two organizations as well. All great organizations, unique in what they're providing as far as advancing interprofessional education or interprofessional practice. I'd encourage you to check some of these out. They can be great resources for you, either now within your bachelor's program or as you go on to graduate healthcare work, you might see them. So that's about all of the, again, this is just a brief introduction. There's so much more information that you will get as you continue on in the health science program on interprofessional education and practice, but hopefully you at least now understand what it is. That should be the main objective. And now I'd like to apply it to a case study. So we are going to be looking at a real case, a real person who is an athlete that was injured. And we're going to talk about how interprofessional practice may have contributed to his overall care. For this actual class, you're going to be doing something similar. So I would encourage you to spend some time in this case study learning how you could develop an interprofessional scenario and how this would work, because you're going to be doing this in a couple weeks. So just kind of preview here. In next week, you'll be asked to do your healthcare presentation to the small group. That's where you become the expert in a unique healthcare setting. And again, we've talked about that some in class. We'll talk about it more. But after you become your own expert in whatever healthcare professional that you selected at the beginning of the semester, you'll be placed into small groups. Within that small group, you're going to be asked to develop a scenario where you have a common patient that all those different healthcare professionals that are in your group, or whoever you're representing as the healthcare professional, you're not, you didn't earn the degree yet, but whoever you're representing, how they may all work together in a collaborative way for a common goal of the patient. So what kind of scenario might they all come together and have to work on on a patient with? And then you'll be focusing on some of the different aspects of interprofessional practice as you develop that scenario. So let me show you how it might look. So a case study here on March 31st, of 2013, and this was a nationally televised game, the Elite Eight game. So we're talking college basketball here. And it was Louisville against Duke University, an Elite Eight. Kevin Ware, who was one of the players for Louisville, landed awkwardly. It was a non-contact injury after attempting to block a three-point shot by the Duke guard, who was Tyler Thornton. Now, there is a video on the next slide here. It's slide 18 of your PowerPoint. And it actually, because it was nationally televised, this gut-wrenching open fracture to Kevin Ware's right leg. Open fracture means the bone comes out of the skin. Fracture means it broke. So there is a break of the lower leg and the bone sticks out of the skin. So gruesome injury. And it was nationally televised, like I said. So if and when you click on the link, which is here, just know that you will see the actual open fracture. So those of you that might have a weak stomach or be uncomfortable with that, fair warning that you will see the actual injury here. But this gruesome injury happened, and acutely, there's Kevin right here. He's the one obviously on the ground, which you see the backboard laying next to him in the top left picture. So acute meaning happening right now. Here, Kevin was obviously taken out of the game, rushed to Methodist Hospital. The game was played in Indianapolis. Rushed to Methodist Hospital and underwent surgery that night. You can see a picture. That's actually Kevin right there, right after his surgery that very night of the game. So he was rushed over and had the surgery to repair his leg. From an interprofessional practice standpoint, I want you to think about what different healthcare professionals contributed to his care. So from laying on the court here during the basketball game to then being transported to the hospital, intake at the hospital, what would he have needed when he got to the hospital? An x-ray, medication, his blood pressure taken, all these things. And then going into the operating room. What would he need in the operating room? And then post-op. Think about who would have contributed, what would he have needed? And so you're making a list of different healthcare professionals that were all working together. After the acute care and surgery, you can see Kevin up here in the hospital starting his recovery. You can imagine, you can see the affected leg has got the ACE wrap on it there for some compression. So this is like right out of surgery here. But you can imagine it's going to be a long road for Kevin as far as rehab goes. So in the recovery process, what different healthcare professionals do you think would be involved? Thinking about it now, would you say a physical therapist to help to learn to walk again? Would you say an athletic trainer to learn some of those functional activities to return to basketball? And yes, Kevin did return for the next season of basketball, which is incredible when you think. So it was about 6-month recovery that he took, and then he was able to play ball the next year. What other healthcare professionals would be involved? Maybe a dietitian? Can you think of others? His orthopedic surgeon certainly would be involved, and how so? Can you imagine the orthopedic surgeon would stay involved in Kevin's case? It's about the radiologist. He might need some repeat x-rays to make sure things are healing well. The radiologist stays involved. Again, we're making a list of all these different healthcare professionals. Now we're going to take it, and this is the last slide here. So here's this example of the interprofessional collaboration. All these different people, and again, I would hope your list, when you really think about Kevin's specific case, would be even more inclusive than just these people. They're all working together to carry out an individualized care plan for Kevin to improve his health status. So in what ways would we make this an interprofessional collaboration versus a multidisciplinary approach? How would they collaborate and communicate together in order to ensure they're all working towards the same goals and they're exchanging their different disciplines information? So, and this can be really difficult when, I'm going to back up 2 slides here. You think about on the court here, emergency situation, things are chaotic. How even in the midst of chaos can you keep up good communication, good collaboration, and to depend on other members of the healthcare team? Thinking back to him on the spine board here, I'm looking at the upper left picture, we see his teammate is trying to console him there, but you see people working on him. I think that is the athletic trainer there in the red that's working on him, and you can just see the right leg in the blue pant there with the black shoe, if you can see that. That is the paramedic that was on site. So already we have 2 different healthcare professionals working together, the athletic trainer and the paramedic working on site, and then the paramedic transferred into the hospital. So how would they communicate and collaborate when there's an emergency situation like this? Lots of challenges with that. How does that physical therapist that's standing behind Kevin in the picture, how does he communicate and collaborate with the orthopedic surgeon that might have rounded on Kevin that morning, especially if the 2 didn't see each other in person? So good questions to start thinking over. But this is a great example of a real life scenario that requires interprofessional practice in order for Kevin to maximize his recovery and to really to return to basketball. So the fact that he was able to return so soon, being just 1 season out, shows that he had a great healthcare team that were really able to work together towards these shared goals. So again, we'll talk in more detail about the interprofessional case scenario, that group project that will be in just a couple weeks. But this hopefully gave you a great introduction to interprofessional education, interprofessional practice. At this point, watching both part A and part B of the videos here, we're done for the day. I want you to just really reflect back on, can you define what interprofessional education is? Can you define what interprofessional practice is? If you feel really comfortable with that, great. If not, I would go back, look over those definitions, spend some time online, seeing if you can look up other examples, or as always, feel free to reach out to me. But hopefully you have a great understanding of it now. You don't need to be an expert in how to implement it at this point, as this was just an introduction video. But like I said, if you can define it now and really have an understanding of how it can significantly impact you as a healthcare provider or future healthcare provider and impact your patients, then you're on the right track. So that's what we're looking for. All right, I look forward to seeing you real soon. Please reach out if you need anything. And good work with the 2 videos today. Take care.